Last week, whilst filming the bind off, the twined chain bind off, I applied this edge here. And then looking at it, I realized that when you look at the inside of a twined chain bind off, you can very clearly see the stitch heads that you used as you bound off the stitches. So there are the stitch heads. So I started to think about this and thought, well, you could just continue with your background knitting and apply this as a surface decoration. So I put another round of bind off on here, and let's see how we can just continue with the working yarn. So I left my working yarn attached, and if I turn to the inside, I can see the heads of each of the stitches that I bound off. It helps to do this with a fine needle, but for clarity I'm sticking with my regular needle size, and I'm just tucking my needle into each one of the stitch heads, and because I did groups of 3, I will knit up 3 stitches, first into the stitches the blue chain is attached to. I'm not going to darn these ends in from binding off until I've continued my knitting, and here I can see 3 original stitches, so I'm going to knit into those and work my way all the way around until I'm back into pattern again. I've got 3 stitches left to go here. Just come down from the top and then you're in position to knit them. 1, 2, 3. Not to split the plies. 3. And now I'm back to my original number of stitches, and I can carry on working in the round. And then later I can take these tails through to the private side and hide them. And because this joins so perfectly, you won't actually be able to see where you began or ended this chain. And I twisted my second set of bind offs in the opposite direction to the first one. So this looks very much like a chain of knit stitches if I turn it this way. And it probably would look even more so if I'd either done 2 rows of stocking stitch in here, or maybe 1 row. This is a garter bump because my original fabric was garter stitch. So I think this has lots of potential for cuffs, warm starts to a hat, all sorts of interesting things. This edge can be used on flat projects, but you do wind up with having to fudge at the beginning and the end. It's the connecting from the beginning to the end in the round that makes this so attractive. Since I filmed the video on making this as a mid-row feature, I've worked this little swatch with 2 rows of stocking stitch in between my twined rows, and it does make a remarkably interesting fabric. Obviously it's very thick, still has quite good elasticity. You can see here where I probably counted the wrong number of chains, and just it does show a little bit, but it certainly has potential. I'm thinking in this case of using this as a band for a hat, but you could also do just isolated bands in the middle of a project, anywhere you wanted to add this little detail. And this is actually 4 rows of twined, and I've twined them in opposite directions. So twined to the front, twined to the back, and the same again with the second set. All kinds of things you can do with this.